Hello, this is Jess from TRACT, and today we're going to go over a new feature that we're excited to share with you, and this is the QuickBooks Desktop integration. So a lot of you, our customers, are using QuickBooks Desktop, and we recently launched in QuickBooks Online version, so that's available too, but this is in particular for the desktop version. And so we're going to go through a couple of setups and then a couple of examples to show you how it all works. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up the integration. So we're going to go to our company name up here, and we're going to go to integrations, and you'll see now there's two options to connect, and we want to connect the QuickBooks Desktop. Okay, so to set this up, we're going to need a couple of credentials. The first is we're going to download this file, and this is what's going to help you set up your QuickBooks Desktop to connect with TRACT. So we're going to click this, and you notice it downloads over here on the left. And now what we're going to do is we're going to open our QuickBooks, and from QuickBooks you're going to go to File, App Management, and Update Web Services. Okay, there it comes up. So unless you've had some other integrations with your QuickBooks Desktop, this should be empty. But now we want to add an application. And you're going to find your download, and it should be named something like this, Timber App. Probably won't have all of the numbers after it like we've been using for testing. So when you add this, you're going to have to approve and authorize this new service. So you're going to click OK. And then you also are going to tell QuickBooks how often you want to have your QuickBooks update information from TRACT. So this is really up to you. We are still sort of figuring this out, but this is probably a safe option. Yes, whenever QuickBooks company file is open. And especially if you're running QuickBooks like on a server or a standalone computer, then you probably want to choose this so that it just always is updated in the background. So I'm going to choose this option. And then you're going to confirm it with yes. This option is really probably not necessary. Only thing we're transferring is vendor names. So at this point, you probably don't need to check that. So here we're going to continue. And then we're going to confirm again. Okay, so for this video, we're focusing on our production application down here at the bottom. So you can ignore all these at the top. So the next thing we want to do is we want to set up a password, because we need this to be able to transfer data between TRACT and QuickBooks. So type in a password. And tab out of that screen, or click out of it. And just make sure you choose yes to save it. And then we're going to go back to our website now, and this is the password that you're going to put in there. So type in the same password. And then this is very important. You want to make sure that you're going to put in your desktop company name, and this needs to match exactly whatever is in QuickBooks. So notice I've named my company Brown Forestry, and you need to match that spacing and upper and lowercase. And now we're going to say connect. Okay, so it should now say QuickBooks Desktop connected. Okay, so one of the first things we're going to take a look at is settlement statements. And just to give you a high-level overview, the three major touch points for the QuickBooks integration are settlement statements, which are your expenses, Then you have mill reconciliations, which are income or invoices. And then you have invoices in TRACT will also translate to invoices in QuickBooks. So we're going to start with settlement statements. And when you open the screen, you'll notice there are two new columns that you didn't have before you set up the integration. And that is a status column for has it been sent to QuickBooks yet, and a status of has it been paid yet. Okay, so the way this works is we want to send these statements over to QuickBooks so that we have these expenses in our QuickBooks. And once you do this a few times, it should get a lot easier. But the first couple times, you're going to have to tell QuickBooks what vendors you're sending over and what accounts you want to attribute to them. So let's just pick one and do it on its own. So you're gonna, and that's another pretty neat thing we think is that you can really pick and choose which statements you want to send over. So here we're going to send one for our vendor Wayne Brown. We're just going to click send to QuickBooks. And so here you have two decisions that you have to make. We need to tell QuickBooks what vendor this is. And we also need to tell QuickBooks what account we want. And so the account that was selected in TRACT was the landowner stumpage account. So we need to match that up to an account in QuickBooks. Now, the first time we do this, we will try to collect all of your accounts that you have in QuickBooks and all your vendors in QuickBooks, and we'll try to make a selection for you. And since we haven't run the connector yet, let's go ahead and try to do that so that we can see if it collects some of the existing accounts that we have in the system. So I'm going to, for this demo, we're going to do this manually at the moment. So I'm going to check the box here for our production application, and I'm going to tell it to update. And you should see some statuses here. And if everything was connected properly and the password works, then we shouldn't get any errors. Everything should progress and finish. Okay, perfect. So we got a okay result. Everything's 100%. And now I want to go and update this page and see if it gives us any updates on our accounts. Okay, great. So here I knew that I already had a vendor in my QuickBooks called Wayne Brown. And if I go over to my QuickBooks and I open my vendor center, we can see there's the vendor. Now if we go back here, we can select, okay, we're telling QuickBooks that we want to match Wayne Brown to Wayne Brown. And then we also want to see if we can match an expense. So we have login expenses, payroll liabilities, but we don't have stumpage in our QuickBooks. So we're going to tell TRACT to go ahead and create that account for us. Now you could have another account in your system that's maybe it's just called stumpage, or it could be anything you want. You can link it to that, and it's going to remember that matchup after we send it. So we'll go ahead and click send to QuickBooks. And now you'll notice the status down here is sent. And what we're going to do now is go ahead and manually click the update selected. So this is going to run the sync. And by the way, once we've finished this, we're going to tell this to go ahead and run in the background. We're going to tell it to auto run every few minutes, but I'm doing this manually now so we don't have to wait on that. Okay, so it looks like everything's synced. And if we go and look at our QuickBooks, we update. Look, we have a new bill for Wayne Brown. It's listed here at $600. And if we open that up, we can see there's the landowner stumpage account that we told it to create. It created a $600 expense, and it referenced settlement statement number 41 on February 16th of 2023. And we can go back to TRACT and see there's the amount, $600. This is the settlement statement number 41. So you have a clean reference of being able to link your bills in QuickBooks to your statements in TRACT. And if you don't use bills all the time in QuickBooks, it should still work for you. A bill is basically just a way to group multiple expenses, and then you can write checks for your bills. So what this does is it gives you the flexibility to send the statements from TRACT over to QuickBooks, and then you can choose when and how you pay them later. So for example, you could pay this one bill with a single check, but you could also choose to pay multiple bills with one check. Or you could choose to hold the payment for a week and write the check next week on your next check run. So that really gives you the flexibility to do that. Now the next thing we want to demonstrate is the ability to pay a bill in QuickBooks, and that should actually update our statement in TRACT. So here we're gonna, from our bill, we want to pay this, and we're gonna tell it we're not gonna do an online payment. We're gonna tell it we want to do a check. We're gonna assign the check number, pay the selected bill. Let's do check 1001. Okay, we are done with that bill. And now if we go back and we trigger our connector, it should update. Okay, now it shows that our status has been paid. Now you'll notice that this edit button is no longer here, and that's because once you send the item to QuickBooks, then we want to lock that item so that you can't make changes and get the amounts off. So we don't want a bill in TRACT to be a different amount than a bill in QuickBooks. So if you need to make changes, you realize you've made a mistake, and what you want to do is you want to roll those changes back in QuickBooks. So you would basically delete the bill or delete the check. And if you delete the check, then that will update the status of the statement in TRACT to unpaid. And then if you delete the bill, it will update the status in TRACT of the statement to unsent, like these. The second time we've gone through this, and if we go through and click on send to QuickBooks, notice how now our vendor is already matched up to our vendor in QuickBooks, and our account is already matched up to our expense account in QuickBooks. And so this is really helpful because if you have 20, 30, 100 statements or whatever, once you've selected that account, it's going to remember the account for each statement, which you're probably using common accounts like landowner stumpage or login expense. And then also a little less common is your vendor, but once you created the first statement for that vendor and match them up in QuickBooks, then all the statements thereafter will remember the correct name and match it to QuickBooks. So let's go ahead and send this statement to QuickBooks. Okay, we're going to select the one that we set up, and we're going to ask it to update. Okay, it's now finished. Let's open back QuickBooks, go to our vendors. So it's actually this one, $400 on the 16th. And if we open that up, we should also be able to get a reference as settlement statement 46. So we can just verify that with settlement statement 46. This will conclude our video on the QuickBooks desktop integration. We go into more detail about sending invoices and reconciliations from TRACT to invoices in QuickBooks in our other video, the QuickBooks Online. We kept those functionalities consistent between online and desktop, so the operations from TRACT are all the same. Good luck with the integration, and please let us know if you have any questions or need any help.